Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Static Echoes. You have Gary with you as usual. And before we get into tonight's episode, I just wanted to ask everybody if you could please like and subscribe to my channel. Every subscription helps me a bunch, not only with my own self-esteem, but with building this little community that I'm trying to build. So if you hit that like and subscribe, that would mean the world to me. And also, a few comments on the videos wouldn't go astray either. It's always good to get a little bit of interaction going because people do like to chat. Now, tonight's episode, it is a doozy. It is an interview with let's just say, your average mature Aussie gentleman who has spent probably more time out in the bush than he has in the city. He has been a professional shooter, a professional tracker, and also a fishing guide, just to name a couple of the things that he's actually done in his life. So, when he shares his story with you about an up-close, I'm talking very close, as in almost being able to touch close interaction with a Australian Yowie, I want you to know that there is no way it was a misidentification. There is no way it was any other kind of Australian creature that could have even come close to being mistaken for a Yowie. And it is quite a mind-blowing actual story, because what I like about this interview is that not everything that he describes about the Yowie is what you would normally hear in your average Yowie story. That tells me there's a little bit more to this than just rinse and repeat, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people, when they talk about Yowie encounters, they talk about the same old stuff. You know, he's got the cone head, he has the red brown hair, it has the this, it has the that, it's 10 foot tall, it's 8 foot tall. This encounter was something completely different, and if you listen to it, you will soon learn that this is probably one of the more credible reports that you will ever hear. So, now that you've all hit that subscribe button and hopefully like this little video, I'm going to play my little intro ditty and we will get right into tonight's episode. Hey everybody, we have Scott on the show. Just to give everybody a little bit of background, Scott started out as a hunter and tracker, but he has dealt with work in the fishing industry and many other awesome Australian type things. And across his journey, he's come across some very famous people as well, not to mention a lot of strange encounters. So bring Scott in now. Scott, how are you, mate?
Very good, thank you, Gary. Yourself?
I'm doing fantastic, and it's awesome to talk to you again. I just wanted you to take maybe 2 minutes just to introduce yourself and give everybody a bit of the history of where you were at, so that when we get into the meat and bones of this, they'll know exactly where you're coming from. So if you want to just let everybody know how you started out, what you were doing, and more importantly, some of the fantastic people that you've actually come across in your time, that would be a great way to get things going.
Yeah, I was fortunate there, Gary. I guess that comes with being old. I ex-Sydney boy, very Sydney boy, born and bred. That my heart and soul lay in the bush, and I left the big smoke a long time ago. Had some great mentors, and yeah, they've 30 odd years been a pro fishing guide in some very remote parts of the country. 16 years based up tip of Cape York there out of Bamaga that a lot of your listeners might know. Anyone who's been at the northernmost point. Mainly fished the west coast, down in through the Gulf, so through a lot of untouched country.
Yep.
It's an amazing part of the world. Anyhow, because the stuff I'd learnt up in the Cape about tracking and trapping, etc., I turned my hand to pro shooting, specialising in feral animal species.
Yes.
Had the contracts with all the mines at the time, their environmental departments, throughout more largely the Hunter Valley, and worked through all the sort of New England there as well. So big contracts like that, and also did work with rural parks, contract work with them. Defence Department, I've done a couple of big contracts, sort of slightly different jobs that I can't say too much about because I did sign NDAs on them.
No, that's fair enough.
Yeah. And through to good old-fashioned farmers who are plagued with feral animal problems.
Yeah.
As a guide up north, I was very lucky. I got to meet everyone you can pretty well think of from the day, barefoot bushman. I've worked with Australian Geo and National Geographic Mag, hosting them. Even Attenborough's crew, Blue Planet, excuse me, Series 1, not Series 2.
Yeah.
And the last being Steve Irwin, actually, who unfortunately passed during the filming of that doco when they took a film break and went south. But no, so get down to this.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, it is fair to say, based on your experience and your qualifications, I guess, when we head into where we're heading in just a moment, it's fair to say that you know a lot of the wildlife in the bush and you're not easily shaken.
A lot. In fact, Parks brought in a system where I literally had to keep logs for them, and I'd submit them every fortnight. I don't know if they still do this, because people like us are out there more than anyone because it's our job, essentially 7 days a week. So if I saw X number of whatever, tawny frogmouth owls, or lucky enough to see a spotted quail or something, you'd list all this.
Yes.
And then hand it to the parks office closest to where I was. And it just helped them with their data collection, etc.
So just a question before we get right into it. Based on what you're about to tell everybody about, how did you go about reporting that, or did you not report that?
Look, Gary, not really report it. Like, how do you report something like this? Well,
that's where I was going, is so many people probably don't report things like this because they just wouldn't know how to do it, and they fear the reprisals and the negative feedback from people.
It wasn't like I was just licensed, say, to harvest, I don't know, roos out west for, or pigs for the wild pig game meat market in countries like Germany, etc. It was across the board. anything designated as a feral animal species.
Yeah.
A tough license to get. It enabled me to use some pretty smick equipment, especially back then.
Yeah.
And hey, you know, this particular incident was in the spring of 2004. Things are changing, but you know, I've got old bushy mentors that have talked about encounters in all earnestness that I believe, because when they're serious, they're serious. But that's as far as their talk went.
Yep.
For me to go running around publicly saying this happened, I was worried about, well, my company credibility.
Yes.
And they're a hard license to get, very easy to lose.
Yeah.
And, you know, any kind of offence whatsoever. Or if they thought you might not have every screw fully tightened, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
I can tell you more about. I have made reference about this to a parks office manager once.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much what he said, more what he didn't say. But his
Yes.
offside has started out with saying, "Oh yeah, we've seen," and then the boss, and I'm not going to tell you which office,
No, fair enough.
give him the big elbow and comes in over the top and went, "Oh yeah, Scotty, we hear these yarns a lot," is what he's saying, and that's where I left it. That's where they left it. That's where they stood.
Well, that's fair enough. All right, so that's been established now that there's obviously things that aren't getting mentioned that Parks and Wildlife do know about, but they're keeping quiet about it. Let's talk
possibly.
Yeah.
They're certainly hearing the stories that, you know, good people like yourselves are now bringing to the fore. Now, what they make of it, you know, I'm not them. I can't fully comment.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But what you can do, what you can do is you can
I didn't believe it.
Yeah, you can comment about.
Sorry?
I was just going to say what you can comment about is what you experienced yourself. So let's start talking about how the evening started out for you. There was a job that you had to do. What sort of area and what sort of habitat was it like, and lead into the actual encounter?
Very nice, picturesque farm country. I will name general location.
Yep.
Which certainly a lot of New South Wales people will know. It was a private job for a gentleman who he was actually a dentist from Newcastle.
Yeah.
So it was just a private contract job. They rang me, give him my name and rang me, and he said, "Look, I've got a terrible rabbit problem. The darn things are underpinning my entire holiday house."
Yep.
That sounded weird to me even. But anyhow,
Yes.
So he told me, he gave me directions, and you're heading in towards Cresford, which I guess is, I'll probably get corrected in the comments here. I guess you'd call that lower Eastern Hunter region.
Yep.
We're a ways out of Cresford. But that's the closest town for a reference point. Could be anywhere in quite a big circumference around there.
Yep.
It was in the spring, lovely weather. So a really quite straightforward job and a shortish job. You know, literally a couple of nights. I met them there, did the fumigating, and in the late afternoon they said, "Well, we're pulling out for the next night or two. Let you do your thing and see you in couple of mornings.
Yeah.
Anyhow, they took off and not far from the house at all. It dropped away and there was a really nice flat bit of ground right next to the stream. Appeared on the track, all right?
Yeah.
Breaks from the scrub. It wasn't super tall. It was about my height, okay? But big enough to see this big, hairy, bipedal humanoid thing
Yeah.
running off down the track.
Wow.
Now, sadly, poaching on a lot of farmers' properties is not that uncommon. They'll cut their fences and all sorts of things and come in.
Yeah.
And part of the job was if I come across people, get their details, their plate number at least, blah, blah, and report it. And I know what I was looking at, but I'm in work mode and my brain just could not fully register
What you were saying.
Which is what people are calling, I'll be straight up, calling yowies.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it's off down the track. It stuck to the track and it was running away. And I'm right behind it, chasing it, literally just a few meters behind it. I'm yelling at, and bear in mind, like I've got 6-volt battery, hangs off my side.
Yeah.
Shooters will know. Mounts to your scope. Lights up everything like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So I had it lit up like daylight. And I'm yelling at this thing, mate, stop. Who are you? You're not meant to be here. It's sloping along. It was hardly sprinting. I wasn't sprinting. I wasn't jogging. I guess at a canter, I suppose.
Yeah.
And this guy just nothing. Didn't want to know about me. To the point where I said, look, if you don't, I'll shoot. Now, Gary, for the record, everybody, for the record, I would never shoot anything on 2 legs in the back.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd shoot anything in the back, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
But it was crazy weird. This thing obviously only had one thing in mind, and that was he wanted out of there. But he didn't have his ears open either because he wasn't stopping for me.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at this thing about my height, like I said. From a bit of a distance or at a glance, people would say it was black. And you can say it was black, but I can tell you if a spotlight right on it, it wasn't a full black, not like that cat I shot.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of even native animals, you get up close with a torch and whatnot on them, you'll see almost like a glistening sheen off the tips of their fur.
Yes.
And it had a bit of very deep chocolate brown in the mix, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was not jet black. Hair bounced around top of its shoulders. I could see its hair bounce around just like, I don't know, some long-haired rugby player running around the paddock.
See, this is interesting because quite often you don't hear these kind of descriptions when we're talking about a yowie encounter. They'll talk about a big hairy person, but not how the hair actually reacts. Now, while we're talking about that, do you want to describe...
That's how close I was.
Yeah, do you want to describe the build and the muscular sort of how solid this thing was?
Very muscular, but I wouldn't say... I've been to the zoo like everyone and watched my documentaries. It wasn't like a tank like say a silverback gorilla, the same sort of height. It was built, and I've fished some very, very well known Australian level rep, both rugby and
Yep.
league players.
Yep.
And it was built like that. You know, in fact, if we had a couple of them in our team, we'd probably win a few more games against the All Blacks, to be honest. It was just built solid, muscular, hair a few inches long. It was longer on the forearm.
Yep.
On the bottom of the forearm. I'm yelling at it to stop. What struck me was when we run, I used to do a lot of running myself, but when we run, we run with our arms cocked. You know what I mean?
Yes.
What is it, right angles or whatever?
Yeah. Sort of 90-degree kind of thing.
This thing, long arms, but not cocked at all, Gary. They're swinging like pendulums, literally like pendulums.
Yeah. That's weird.
And the palms were facing back to me, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
I could see
so the front of it
in my spotlight.
Yeah,
sorry?
so the front of its hands were actually facing forward and its palms were facing back.
At times,
That was
at
very
least,
strange. Yeah.
At times, I could, and because of the spotlight on it, you can believe me or not, I really don't care. I could see creases in its palm. I'm no fortune teller, but it had lines in its palm like we do. They were just a bit more rough and weathered, right?
What colour were the palms?
Like its face, like I told you before. I'll say like a pale slaty grey.
Yeah.
Any skin I could see, and that included the bottom of 1 foot. Because I wasn't looking down too much. I was mainly looking at, head, shoulders, waist type thing. I could see it had what are the muscles, the top of your thigh muscles, big, strong.
Yeah.
You could see them working.
Yeah.
I could see the muscles working in its backside, and I don't know what it's called. You go from your spine across to your shoulder blade, not on the top, on your back.
Yeah.
Muscle there. I could see that muscle working.
So this is definitely not somebody in a suit. This is actually something with actual muscular system
Gary,
working.
Look, I in my head, in the mayhem, I'm kind of trying to logic things out really quick while my brain's short-circuiting at the same time, and that's what I was saying to myself. But hey, I've used night vision, I've used thermal, I've seen plenty of giddy yowie suits. No, you wouldn't shoot because, let's be honest, statistically, in the real world, there's more chance that some guys just spent about 50K on the best costume in the world and thought this would be the best disguise to freak out a guy that they had no idea would be there to begin with and poach on this really secluded property than a freaking yowie, right?
Yes.
But it wasn't. It wasn't. And I'm sure there's normally things when you're going for them, they're always sort of one step ahead of you. If you do sort of get something essentially cornered, it'll do, if you're a pig shooter, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anything really. I've had wombats run me over that I didn't see. I wasn't trying to shoot them, but I walked too close and literally went home with claw prints up my chest and face one night. They'll charge or they freeze.
Yeah.
I think this thing, particularly given he was running away, all right, did not want to know me, did not glance back at me, nothing. No growls, no nothing. I think when I literally walked past it, practically close enough to touch, he's thought, no, too close. I'm Gonski.
Yeah.
And when I look back on it after this all finished, Gary, I thought that thing was either there from the moment I arrived and had been watching me that whole, say, hour and a half before dark,
Yeah.
setting up, knocking off a few rabbits, getting that cat, or I'd heard the commotion and come in for a look-see and thought this is a bit of good cover. I got too close. He's gone.
Well,
If he wanted to wait a microsecond, he could have popped out behind me, snapped my neck, done whatever he wanted. No one would have known. Scott's just had some nasty accident in the bush. You know what I mean?
yeah. So you had no inclination that he was there until it actually came out of the bush itself. All right, now.
And obviously I've looked into it a little bit since it happened. And people talk about this smell often.
Yeah.
I didn't smell a thing, Gary, not a thing.
That's what I was just about to say.
Like
I was going to ask that.
I said to you, every job, well, you know, my hunting gear was pretty rank at the best of the time.
Yeah.
But my great dog, rest in peace, was an actual wild dog pup that wandered into my camp up in the Cape. A lot of dingo in him. I used to rub my hunting jacket all over him before I'd leave for every job, right? And this is, hunters know this. I know some guys that wrap their boots with rabbit skins, stuff like that.
Yeah.
What I used to do every fox I shot, and I've shot probably thousands without sounding like a knobhead.
Yeah.
But once you've downed them, if you just hold, you know, like a specimen jar, you get from the doctor when you have to.
Yeah.
If you hold that below where they pee and just press on their bladder, you get the urine will come out. And used to collect it and put it in a spray bottle. Anyone who doesn't know but wants a tip, spray that all over your boots and the bottom of your leg of your overalls or whatever you're wearing to hide your scent. So maybe it did have some kind of ammonia sulfur type smell to it to a normal person's nose, but between the two of us, he probably wondering who stunk more, to be honest. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but no, I smelt nothing. And this thing could have grabbed me from behind a piece of cake because I would have walked straight past it quite blissfully and never, ever, ever have known. But, yeah, no, I think he just thought, nah, this is too close. That thing he's carrying, not too friendly to whatever he points it at.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Yeah. It's
and something I
yeah,
also thought about, Gary, since we touched base, was that little house out there way out of past Gresford in the middle of nowhere that you got to go through at least two, I think it was three, big properties just to get to.
Yeah.
Super private, super secluded. Some really nice timber country up behind it, right? really nice. It was farmed land, but not just an endless sea of grass, you know. Apart from that gentleman and his partner and his two little kids that got up there once in a blue moon, that was no man's land,
Yeah.
you know. Because that night I seriously thought about, I don't know if I'm sleeping out here in this dell in my swag tonight, if you know what I mean. I might take the show up and sleep on the safety of the house veranda.
So you got that feeling. You got that sort of unnerved feeling that made you question whether you wanted to sleep out in the open. Because
I gave it to myself. It wasn't some weird feeling. I actually didn't feel threatened in any way other than that I just saw this monster in quotes that was a lot tougher and stronger than me, but did not threaten in any way. But then I thought, if this thing lives around here, the only thing he is used to, every now and then, every odd weekend or whatever, this family that keeps to themselves around this house because the rest of the property was a big working farmer's property.
yeah.
I don't know where the farmer who owned all that land, I don't even know where he lived. I never saw his house.
Yeah.
So I can't even tell you how big. In my job, like often I'll do the whole boundaries of some very big properties, you know, and GPS mark all this stuff, you know, places I want to go back to, signs I've seen, blah, blah. And plus, you know, you drive around all night on a quad bike and by night 3 or 4, you're literally seeing stars. It's not hard to get a bit disorientated. So it's nice to be able to refer to your GPS and realise that you're still, you know,
Yeah. I
on
get
the
that.
right
Yeah.
property and all that.
Yeah. All right.
Well, maybe Mr. Yowie, I was the new kid on the block, you know, and I thought to myself, well, maybe he goes up there and has a camp in that hammock on the veranda when no one's around because he knows that 95% of the time there's nothing there. There's no one there.
That's very possible. And one of the other things that I was actually thinking about is that obviously the sound of the gun might have drawn him in, but with you shooting the rabbits and things like that, maybe he was thinking he might have got an easy feed out of it as well, hoping you'd drop one or something along the way, or even track you back to wherever you were staying and then sneak in the middle of the night and grab something.
I can tell you, because I would have been out, because there was clear country around the scrub along the right side of that track. I would have seen him coming in because it was still daylight, remember?
Yeah.
So it was night by the time I went up to walk it and came into it across the thing, but it had only been dark for, 15, 20 minutes. I don't know what they eat. You can take your guesses, I suppose. I've never seen anything before in my life. I guess I've never really looked for them, but I've never come across any big, like, matted down nest things or tree breaks or strange kill. Oh, that's a tough one, actually. I have seen kills a little bit up trees, but I've seen dogs big and smart enough to do that sort of thing.
See, what I like about what you're talking about here is you're giving a very rational explanation to a lot of things that a lot of city slickers will be going, yeah, that's not right. That's not right. But before we delve any further, I know there's a question that just about every listener here is going to be asking, and they'll be saying, Gary, ask the question. And that is, did you see his face?
Very, very briefly, Gary. I was chasing it, literally yelling at it.
Yeah.
Like it was a person for about 30 odd or a bit more meters. So for a while, and then he just suddenly does a quick, if you're an old rugby fan, like an old style David Campese sidestep, hangs a right and just runs straight into this big dead-ended washout, right?
Yep.
Now, as he hung that right, and that's when I really kind of freaked out, I get a momentary look at its face in profile.
Yes.
Yeah, it did have a heavy type brow ridge.
Yep.
Yes, he had, I'll call it like a flatter, more bulbousy type nose.
Yes.
It had I'm going to say a big mouth because the half that I could see, assuming the other side was the same,
You would have to think that way, yeah.
he had a pretty big mouth, but very straight, Gary.
Mhm.
Very straight. Like you're drawing a straight line across there, like I didn't really, he just had a very flat mouth. I don't know if that makes any sense or
Yeah,
not.
no, it
Okay.
does, yeah.
And people talk about no neck. Like I said to you, very hard to tell, to be honest, because the hair and its build. You look at a full-blown rugby player, they got necks just like you and I, but it don't look like it because their shoulders just keep going and practically join at the base of their jaws.
Yeah,
So
you've got those
I
trapezius
don't know if
muscles. You got
what?
You got the trapezius muscles that come up the back of your neck to give it that kind of slope rather than just flat and then straight up to neck. So,
whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So I've sometimes wondered if that's why people say they got no neck.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now, if this thing had popped out and was 8 or 10 foot tall and facing me and snarling or growling or whatever people say they do, this would have been a very different story. I either wouldn't be here or I would have shot that thing in the head, and it would have had to been the head because I only had my 22 mag then while I was scouting.
Yeah.
I've never seen a big monster thing like that.
Well, not many people have.
Yeah.
Now,
and
when we
what blew me away, it had a freaking beard, for want of a better word. It had a beard.
How long was the beard? That's the question.
Oh, it wasn't big, long Gandalf the Wizard type beard. It was like, I think I was saying to you, I think it's on like male orangs. They have like a big furry beard, but it had a hairy, whiskery, more person-like beard. And for some reason, that and the way its arms swung like pendulums, they were the two things that freaked me out.
That's interesting.
When he hung that quick right, I just wasn't expecting to see that kind of detail on this thing's melon. I don't know what I was expecting. From behind, it's a big, hairy thing, freaky enough. But that quick profile look and this washout, reasonably wide, very steep, practically vertical. And as it turned out, dead end back that was as good as vertical. And it was a big old washout. It was chockers full of just young sapling type gum, I suppose you call them.
Yeah.
And scrub. And he's charged into that, trotting along at a fair clip and just gone into there like it didn't exist. And he just smashed his way in there.
So there's a bit of force in that, yeah.
Nothing. I mean, nothing. I swear you could have heard a pin drop. This thing was just standing there. I guess he figured nowhere else to go. By now he might be feeling a bit scared, and it was that thick. I would have had to have crawled in there pretty well. And then what? Then all hell's going to break. I couldn't have swung a rifle or anything. I wouldn't go in there in a good day, even chasing a fox, to be quite honest.
Well, you know what it's like.
Standing,
yeah, you know what it's like when when you feel cornered. That's when those sort of aggression, fight, flight kind of things come into place. And something like that, you don't really want to put it in a position where it's going to make a decision what it wants to do, especially if you're crawling in on your bloody hands and feet with the gun not in the ideal location. You're leaving yourself wide open.
It had gone from something got spooked, ran away, got chased for a bit, to we're cornered here, close quarters situation, if I made it one. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I was about a mile too close anyway. You know, like I'm standing at the entrance to this washout still saying, mate, come out. Who the bleep are you? What are you doing here? You're not meant to be here. There's no one for miles. You don't, I swear to God, I'm going to shoot. Now, there's no way I was going to put a couple of level shoulder height shots into there.
Yeah.
Because God knows what could have come roaring out at me. God knows who I could have killed.
Yeah.
You know, because my brain's still it 2 legs, Gary.
Yes.
This thing's on 2, not for 1 second was it on 4. It wasn't something, you know, and we don't have bears and stuff. Anyhow, but I put two rounds of 22 mag down into the ground at the entrance and said, look, I told you I'm not joking, mate. Come out. Still nothing. I mean, not so much as a leaf break. Anyone who's, particularly bow hunted, for example, for pigs, will realise, because often when you're bow hunting, you work out their beat and you sit and wait. I've had a number of occasions where a whole mob of pigs has moved in, particularly this rainforest section I used to shoot up in the Cape. And the first I knew that they were there, literally 15 foot in front of me, was when I see a tail flick.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen a mob of pigs move in on a number of occasions without making a sound in the bush. How they do it, it's unreal. It's masterful, you know. And that's how quiet he was in there. And that's where I left it.
That's a very smart thing to do.
What do you do?
Yeah, it's a very smart thing to do.
I was not going in there. And no, I didn't tell the owner. I just said, you know, on the last morning when he met me and fixed me up, and I showed him the cat, and, you know, you charge for what you shoot, etc. I said, you got some damn strange critters on this property, mate. He said, oh, yeah, do I? Yeah. There's a city guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's a dentist from Newcastle. Really nice guy.
Actually, I do have one other thing to bring up that we talked about the other day, and that was when we were describing the top of his head. Now, this is one of the things that when I was listening to you tell me about it, which made me think, you are not just sprouting the same old stuff that everybody else talks about. Do you want to describe how the top of the head looked? Yeah,
completely round.
Yeah.
In a way, almost too round. He had like a coconut head. And yeah, I know what you're referring to since looking into this a bit further. You're talking about that cone head or pointy head on some of them. Nah, nothing like that. Nothing like that.
Now,
just round head.
Yeah. Now to go into a few things that I've been looking up since actually talking to you about this, what I get from this is I think maybe it's a juvenile that was out there.
I got the impression it wasn't full grown. It did not seem old. You know, you can look at any animal in the bush and you can get an idea if it's young or really old, certainly, you know?
Yeah, well, the way
young
you
and
just,
old and in their prime.
Yeah.
He was a young buck.
Yeah.
To me, he was like the equivalent of a young steer, you know, a full potty, you know, ready to go to the next level in the cattle world.
Yeah.
He was fit. His hair was matted, but, you know, it's not like he combed it. But
no.
It wasn't. If someone asked me to guess, I'd say it wasn't fully grown. And some of the stories I've heard, and from some very trusted old mentors who had many, many years on me when I was learning the bush when I was young. You know, they were the last of the old hand timber cutters still living.
Yeah. Well, like I said,
you know, they talked about it's 8, 10 foot freaking tall.
Yeah. Well,
no, it wasn't.
Yeah, and this is the interesting part about this one is, like I said, when these things are young, they're curious, so they might come in a little bit closer than the more adult, the bigger ones, which have had more experience and they're a little bit more standoffish. This thing was coming in for a close look. To get that close, now to give you a little bit of a hint,
he had perfect line of sight.
Yep.
Straight across to that. He could oversee that entire dell that I was camped in.
Yeah.
Which is probably about half the size of a footy oval. You know, and I'm literally at one end, the upstream end, and I'm shooting rabbits at the other end as they're coming out. If he looks across to what would have been his left, perfect view of the house. He had the perfect view for everything. It would have been a good spot if he could have got in there and didn't mind a bunch of stuff sticking in there to shoot from.
Yeah.
If you're working the other way around.
Yeah. Well,
I went out to check that track with that partly in mind because I thought rabbits here, there'll be foxes in this dell through the night. I'll pull foxes out of here for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and they're worth a few bucks.
Yeah. Well, just to take that. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, just to take that a little bit further. I've got a good friend by the name of Ray Doherty, who is he's an Australian known Yowie researcher. And he was telling me this story about this one time when he was out investigating with his son. Now, Ray is 6'4" and his son is 6'7". So they're not little blokes. They're pretty tall blokes. And it was nighttime and they were talking. And I think there was one or two other guys with them that were sort of a bit further over towards where the cars were. Anyway, while there was a bit of investigation going on, his son turned around and said, "Dad, will you stop doing that?" And Ray turned around and goes, "Stop doing what?" He goes, "Will you stop breathing down the back of my neck?" And Ray goes,
"Hey,
dude, I'm right in front of you." And then he got the chills. A Yowie came so close that its breath was hitting the back of his son's neck or the back of his son's head. And his son's 6'7", so this thing's mouth is up at least that tall. And that's how close they can come in when they feel safe to do so. And
this is it, you know, like I'm thinking to myself, and part of me wish I could say, look, it was my third or fourth night on the job, you know, working all through the night. You better sleep through the day, but, you know, by the time you finish it up on a job, you know, and I just hallucinated. I just kicked this gig off.
No.
You know, I've had 20 years to think about this, and I just kind of put it. I've seen some pretty weird things. Nothing, just more amazing. Than we in nature. You know, I don't think many people see two manta rays doing black flips in unison out of the water too often. just great stuff. But
Yeah.
I could not put this in any category other than some other bush critter,
Mm.
and thought about some of the, particularly up in the Cape where it's more an islander population, some of their lore and their stories. Just made a bit more sense to me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Not just. Well, there's that old saying, behind every myth and legend that there lies a grain of truth. As in, that story come from somewhere.
Definitely. Yeah. Anyway, I think we're just about out of time, but what I would like to do is sum this whole thing up by saying that you are not your average person. You live life out in the bush, so you know it inside out. You know the sounds, you know the tracks, you know the signs of
I
animal
stopped
lives.
counting ages ago, Gary, but the last time I worked out the figures, and that was quite some time ago, I'd spent literally over 3.5 years of my life under the stars, just me in the bush.
So you are not getting fooled by something perfectly normal.
No,
You are,
but super stealthy. How they're surviving. I used to, I believe the old timers and their stories out of respect. Some of these old timber cutters and stuff. Because when they're serious, they're serious. And, if you didn't believe them, I wouldn't say it to them anyway.
yeah,
But I thought, how could something like this live here in this country? Well, there is no shortage of food when you really think about it. And if it's spent its entire life, and, I've had wild cattle that they're Brahman cattle.
yeah,
So, their head high at the shoulder. They scare me more than crocs or anything up in the Cape, and pretty well anyone that's spent time up there will agree with you. They are big animals.
yeah,
Something that's spent, imagine your whole life, however many eons, they must have worked out a way to avoid us, but my God, they can get close when they want to.
yes. That's what
Because
I'm leading to.
he had, well, I arrived around midday, fumigated for most of the afternoon, then did that bit of shooting till dark. He had that afternoon, if he was in the area, to get out of there. But he'd either been there watching the whole time, watching everything, and it was in a perfect spot to do it, or the new commotion in his area has got his interest.
Yeah,
Now I don't know which it was, but either way, he's come up for a sticky beak, or he was there the whole time and hung around. And yeah, if he hadn't have broke from that bush,
we wouldn't be talking now.
no, and there'd still be stories to me. And there's a big part of me is afraid that some people out there are going to reverse engineer my last name, but so be it. I really don't care, mate. I don't pro shoot now, and that's what happened. And what said, I just put it in the category of some weird ass stuff.
Yeah,
That can happen out there, type of thing. But what really kicked it off, and this is when I really started looking back into it, and I've got 4 very, very best mates who are giving me heaps because they're very high flying city slickers. But I was saying to you, and we're going there again this July. One of my mates It's been handed down through the property, a massive old sheep property out past, I'll say Coolabah region.
Yeah.
Not naming the property or anything. 2-3 day drive. We all left from Sydney. I had to come down up to Sydney for it to meet them. Anyhow, one of our pit stops one night, you drive past the Pilliga Scrub. I've heard those stories.
Yeah.
I've walked around the Pilliga Scrub. Nothing weird ever happened to me, but I know it. I've heard those stories.
I've spoken to people about the Pilliga.
You have, yeah. We're one of our pit stops, and we were getting in late. The office, they said 8:30, I think it was 8 or 8:30 tops, and the kitchen closes at the same time. Driving there, initially thinking, a few quiet ones at the bar, nice dinner, but we get in late. But you had to get. It's the Crossroads Hotel, Crossroads Pub in Narrabri. We walk in through the front bar. It's a weekday. Locals sitting around the bar, and we had to go straight past through there in to this side door to the office, and it was grabbing me up to our room, and the boys are like, "Good night, the goose. We're going to be up at dawn and on the road again."
Yeah.
But we walk in. And I've Googled this pub. Maybe you can find out for me, Gary, because there's no picture on their website. But we'll be stopping there on the way back up. This was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
In the middle of the pub, there's a big wooden carving, essentially life size, maybe 5 foot high. A beautiful piece of woodwork, and I love my woodwork. Carving of a yowie in the middle of the goddamn bar. And I walked in with my mates, and it just come out. I said, "That's it. That's it." And they're like, "That's freaking what?" I said, "That's what I saw that night at work." "What night? Where at work?" "That carving is almost like a photograph of the thing I chased." And they've all looked at me like, "What have you been on while we were watching through the day?"
Yeah.
But that publican's either heard the Pilliga stories and stuff and commissioned some real talented local carver as a touristy thing.
Or they've seen something themselves.
Someone's seen what I've seen and they've done a carving of it. And I was really frustrated because they were shutting everything down early. I wanted to sit down at the bar, start chatting to some locals and ask what's the story of that there carving. But never got the chance. If you've got contacts in that department, I would love to know. Because the general build, if you want to get an idea of how it was built, solid, but not gorilla barrel chested type thing.
Yep.
And no, it wasn't scrawny. I think you asked me initially when I said it wasn't very tall.
Yes.
It wasn't scrawny either. I can tell you that. He looked like a rugby player, very hairy. I'd like to know.
There's a few rugby players that are pretty hairy.
I'd like to know more about the story of that carving. It's probably a tourist attraction, but then again, if it was just that, I'd probably have it out the front. But someone's put a carving that's damn near like a photograph of what I chase near the town of Gresford. Good luck trying to find the property because I didn't tell you every turn I took.
And we're not going to say anything. Yeah.
And if you think I've said, take it out.
Anyway, Scott, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you. If anyone can help shed some more light I'd appreciate it, and everyone else can take it or leave it. I really don't mind if people believe me or not, but
well, it's your story,
what
mate. It's your story, whether they believe you or not. It is your story, and it is yours to share. And I really do appreciate that you shared it with me here and everybody who's listening in. So before we go, anyway, I better say to everybody, look, if you're still listening at this point, I know a lot of people do, and a lot of people do sort of taper out. Please think about liking and subscribing to the channel. And if you like to comment in the comments your stories, and if you know anything to do with this statue, I would appreciate if you put that in the comments, because I could get that back to Scott as well and take it from there. But Scott, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, mate.
Oh, so do I, Gary. And yeah, if you find out anything about that carving, I'm sure you got a lot more info about these critters than I do, because it was a one-off. I'd like to know more about them. I really would.
On that, I think that's a good place to leave it. So until next time, take it easy, everybody. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.